Good day, everyone. For today's discussion, we'll be learning about language transfer. And I would assume that everyone is somewhat familiar with the concept of language acquisition and language learning. So, um, to just give a brief definition for the unknowledgeable, uh, learning acquisition is a unconscious or subconscious type of language learning, while language learning or language acquiring. Language learning, on the other hand, is a conscious process of acquiring a language. This means that language acquisition is the type of process, just like when babies just naturally acquire or learn a language without going through proper education, just from being around their parents, their caregivers, their peers, and learning language throughout their life. While language learning is the formal type of process where it is in education where you consciously learn about a language, where they give you the technicalities and all that stuff. So um on the other hand, here we have language transfer. So what does language transfer, or what is the difference between language transfer and language acquisition? So here we will find out why it is called language transfer. So here, language transfer refers to the process where speakers apply knowledge from one language to another language while learning or using the new language. So this is all about um, learning another language, which means you have a second language. And this is the process by which speakers apply the knowledge from one language to another. This phenomenon is a natural part of language learning and can influence both the accuracy and fluency of a language learner's speech or writing. For instance, a Filipino speaker learning Spanish might assume casa is used in the same way as bahay, leveraging familiarity in similar vocabulary, where both casa and bahay in English means house. So when this is when you would assume that in when you use the word casa, you would use it in the same way as you would use as in the Filipino word bahay. So what other concepts does language transfer have? So here we have positive transfer. So what is positive transfer? Positive transfer occurs when the similarities between the learner's native language, or also known as L1 in short, and the target language, which is L2, facilitate learning. So what does this mean? For example, a French speaker learning English might quickly grasp words like nature and intelligent because they are similar in form and meaning to their French counterparts, nature and intelligent. These similarities can accelerate vocabulary acquisition and comprehension. So this is when somewhat the grammatical rules and syntactic rules of your L1 and L2 are somewhat similar, and you can apply the rules of your L1 to your L2 to facilitate learning. So, with that, if we have positive transfer, of course, we also have negative transfer. So, negative transfer happens when differences between the L1 and L2 leads to errors. So, what does that mean? So, in a nutshell, negative transfer is all about using the rules of your first language or your L1 that doesn't really connect with your second language. So, for example, A Chinese speaker learning English might say, "She go to school every day," omitting the third person singular s be- because Mandarin does not mark verbs for subject agreement, unlike English. This mismatch in linguistic rules can lead to systematic errors until the learner adjusts to the new language's structure. So this is this is basically using the rules of your L1 and applying it when you're learning or using the second language, and it omits and creates errors. So another aspect that we have for language learning is false friends. So what is false friends? Why is this here? Why is this concept here? So false friends, do not make a mistake of the uh, name of the concept, but false friends are words in two languages that look or sound similar but have different meanings. So we have all we we would have tackled synonyms and antonyms, but what does false friends have to do with language transfer? So, for example, the Spanish word embarazada may confuse English speakers into thinking that it means embarrassed, because in fact it means pregnant. So, um, when English speakers might use or when they hear the word embarazada, they might have to think of uh, the word embarazada as embarrassed instead of it being pregnant. So, this false friends, because it sounds similar to another word in another language or in the same language, it can confuse the speakers and learners, therefore creating mistakes. Because in our example just now, uh, the English speaker might use the word embarazada as embarrassed instead of pregnant, and when a Spanish speaker hears about this, they might have to have a confused look on their face, because the the lexical meaning and the structure of the sentence might not coerce with their knowledge of the language. So, last but not the least, we also have grammatical negative transfer. So, we already had negative transfer. So, what is grammatical negative transfer? And how does it differ from negative transfer? So, grammatical negative transfer occurs when a learner transfers grammatical rules from their native language that don't apply to the target language, causing errors. So, what does that mean? It's the difference is a bit vague, but um, for instance, a Japanese speaker might say, "I book read" when speaking in English, because Japanese uses uh, subject of the object verb instead of subject verb object like in English. The structure can be a big thing when making grammaticality work in a sentence, especially in a different language. So when a Japanese speaker might say, I book read," because of they use the structure subject object verb instead of the English subject verb object, this can lead to errors. Another example is a French learner of English saying, "He has 12 years" instead of "he is 12 years old," transferring the French grammatical structure of "il est 12 ans." These errors reflect the influence of the native language's grammatical system. So, with that, that is all about language transfer. I hope you have learned something about language transfer and how it differs from language acquisition and language learning, because it involves, in a nutshell, it involves two languages instead of just one, and it can it can lead to errors or positive factors and influences. There can be many things that can happen with these aspects under language transfer. So, with that, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you learned something.